Are you ready to double your real estate sales and grow your business like never before? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Real Estate Matters, hosted by Matt Curtis, leader of the #1 real estate team in Alabama for the last 6 years. With over 8,000 homes sold and more than 4,000 five-star reviews, Matt's proven strategies speak for themselves. Ready to double your sales with expert strategies? Let's dive in. This is Real Estate Matters. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Matters podcast. I'm your host, Clark Dunn, here with Matt Curtis and Matt Curtis Real Estate.
Yeah, another exciting topic today. Ready to dive in.
Yeah, so today we're talking a little bit about kind of the blueprint for 2026, goals, growth, and the game plan for new real estate agents. To get us started, before we dive into 2026, what can the real estate agents do at kind of ending 2025 to get them in the best position to start the new year?
Yeah, one of the best hacks that I learned, I actually learned this from John Maxwell. He's like the leadership guru. But what John does is he looks at like the last week of the year. He'll go back through and review his calendar, kind of day by day. And I don't do it a whole week. I think, for real estate agents, I'd probably be a little bit overdoing it. But I spend about 3-4 hours, one of the final days of the year. And what I do is I go through every single day. And I kind of look for trends. All right. This thing I spent a lot of time on, but it moved the needle absolutely nothing. Mark that down. Hey, this was really, really good. This was like one of the most impactful things I did all year. Definitely continue to do this. And so at the end of the day, I ended up with pages and pages of notes. And I kind of go back through, I compile the notes and I look for trends and I make immediate adjustments. Like, all right, here's the things that I'm absolutely not doing in 2026 or 2027, whenever the year is. Here's the things that I need to do more of. Here's the things that I need to consistently do. And then I'll take that and I'll look at what I call my ideal calendar. So it's hard to, have an exact calendar, every single week, but if you have something to shoot for and a framework that you operate off of, it's easy to plug things in. Because otherwise in real estate, you're just, flying by the seat of your pants. Oh yeah, I can take this. I can't do that. And then you're wondering why you're exhausted, and you try to go on vacation, and you work the whole time on vacation because you didn't plan ahead. So anyway, I take the ideal calendar, and I look, all right, here's what I've been operating off of. Take this out, but here's the 3 or 4 things that I really need to do more of, or here's something I need to do in 2026. And then I roll that out for the year. And I go ahead and I'll time block. I put time on my calendar, like this is this time, this is this time. So that people know that they can't schedule times during that. And it's a really easy thing for me. Like, hey, I'm sorry, I've got another appointment during that time.
Yeah. And I think, things do come up and life does happen, but having those sort of, hey, what does it look like? What does an ideal week look like for me? Like if I did these things at these times on these specific days of the week, I will have a successful week. And then being willing to know that like things do happen, that you have to like, hey, well, this fire needs to be put out today. Well, I can move that. When you're looking at your past year, how tough is it for you to look at maybe the things that you shouldn't be doing, even if it's a thing that the real estate agent maybe that's listening that's like, hey, I really enjoyed doing this, but after I did the review, I realized this didn't do anything for me.
Yeah, no, that's a really good insight as well. There's 2 things I'll stop doing. It's like, hey, this just doesn't need to be done. Like it just needs to be dropped and scrapped altogether. That's kind of like firing bullets before you fire cannonballs. You want to be testing a lot of stuff, and it's okay to find at the end of the year, like, hey, I don't want to do these things anymore. That's how you just don't want to spend all your time on those things. But the second one is, hey, this is like really, really important, or is important. Like business doesn't continue if it doesn't get done. Like if I don't go put that sign out or for sale sign, if it doesn't get installed, we got a problem, but maybe I don't need to be the one doing it. And so at that point, you always kind of, not only at the end of the year, but you almost want to have, I think we're all really good at creating to-do list. I think there's 2 things on that to-do list. Like one is be okay with it not being finished, but hey, if I get this 1, 2, 3 things done today, that's success. Yeah, I think that's a really important thing for a lot of people. Sometimes we just feel like we got to get it all done, and we just don't. But the second list that you need to have at all times is a stop doing list. And you can create it from the end of the week, end of the year, kind of evaluating your year, but you should always be doing that. like every week be thinking about like, all right, what things are either not really like life breathing, like I'm not really designed to do this. It puts me in a bad mood. I'm not really good at it. My clients probably don't even really like it when I do that, So who can I replace myself with on that? And so first thing you got to do is you got to document it. You got to put processes behind it, training, so that somebody that you hire can come in and do it, with excellence. Then you got to put in like routines of like, hey, when am I going to check in and making sure it is done with excellence, and supporting that team member that I'm handing it off to, because sometimes that's what agents do. Is our busy entrepreneurs, they just like, oh, I'm so ready to be done with it. Here, Clark, you take it, and then you just good luck. Good luck.
I have no idea what does success look like.
Yeah,
no idea.
Yeah, good luck. But just kind of showing what that roadmap looks like. But we should always be doing that as entrepreneurs, and even if sometimes it's like something that we might even enjoy doing, but you got to know what your hourly rate is, and if you've got a certain rate and you can pay somebody else a fraction of that, you probably need to pay somebody else a fraction of that and go do what, really moves the needle for your business.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things about like joining our team is we've already done that for agents. So we've figured that process out over the years, and we've hired the admin staff. Like right now, as of this recording and when it's released, I'm sure we'll have, probably twice this many agents, but we've got like 54 agents and 17 admin staff. We've got a lot of support staff for our agents. They are, putting those signs out, scheduling the photography, putting listings in MLS, coordinating files, doing requests for repairs, going to closings, calling past clients. They're doing, marketing the home. They're doing all these things so that agents can do what they really got in the business to do, is be with the buyer, be with the seller, help them price that home, help them negotiate the home, show the home, all the things that you get into real estate for, and that's most dollar productive for the agent. But you don't realize like all the other stuff that comes along with being a real estate agent too.
Yeah. And he's like, there's plenty of, you start the business, any entrepreneur, any sort of business entity, they start it because they're really passionate about that particular industry, not the admin and all the busy work that that associates with that. But that's stuff that has to be done. That like it does move the needle. It's just the behind the scenes. And like I said, figuring out, is there things that the clients that I work with don't really care if it's me that does it or if someone else does it. They just need it to be done. And then I can delegate and teach and make sure there's a clear path of success.
Yeah. Like one of the number one things we ask agents, hey, why are you thinking about getting real estate? Well, I just love showing homes. Well, they didn't realize everything else they were signing up for. So that's what we try to, for our agents, we try to get them doing what they're passionate. Like here's why I got into it, because they want to show homes.
Mm. And so after that agent is done planning at the end of this year, going into 2026, they've looked at their to-do list, they've looked at the things that they shouldn't be doing, they've looked at sort of where their time was spent. How do you go about putting together a goal worksheet for 2026? And what are some of the things that you would encourage agents to incorporate into this goal worksheet?
Mm-hmm. Here's what we do for our agents. And so we had a 2025 goal worksheet, and we took it to another level this year for 2026. I'm super proud and excited for our agents for it. But basically, it's kind of three components for that goal worksheet. Number one is a lot of agents, you don't get into real estate because you're, engineer or mathematician or anything like that. And so a lot of agents kind of struggle with the numbers and trying to figure out the goals. And we try to make it really simple for them, because business is, a numbers game. And so we try to translate that to them as far as what the numbers they need to make and make it really simple. So like the first thing that we do is we've got a spreadsheet, and they just have to fill out a couple things on here. And it's basically, my income goal is X. I want to make $50,000. I want to make $100,000. I want to make $250,000, whatever it is, plug it in. And then you put in there like, all right, the percentage of my business, like for us, different leads are going to pay a different rate. Like if it's your sphere, like your friend from church, you're going to get a higher commission than, lead that we're having to pay for. And so you break it down like percentages of where your business is going to come from. And then the spreadsheet outputs it like, all right, you need to sell X number of homes. Your goal is $100,000. You need to sell 2 homes a month. to hit that. And so we really break it down at a high level. And so at that point, you're like, all right, I need to sell 2 homes. And then once you have that number of, all right, I need to sell 2 homes, well, what kind of work do I need to put in to sell 2 homes? That's, KPIs, that's the lagging indicator. What kind of leading indicators do we need to put in to achieve that? And it really comes down to like 3 things. It's calls. You need to put in some effort. You need to reach out to people, your past clients, your leads. You need to have conversations. Some agents think if they just make a phone call, oh, it rang twice, let me hang up. Somehow they're making money. No, it's a people business. You got to connect with somebody. So it's, you got to have conversations with people. That's even more important than the calls. So you got to connect. And then you got to, why do you have conversations? So that you can schedule an appointment. You can get face to face. You're not a telemarketer. You're not selling over the phone. The whole goal of a call and conversation is to meet with somebody, whether it be on a listing appointment, a buyer appointment, or whatever it may be. And so what we can do with those 3 things, calls, appointments, conversations, we track everything in our database. And so like if an agent's been on our team 6 months, a year, we can go back and say, all right, Clark, your call to contract ratio is every 150 calls you make, you get a contract. So that's really easy. We just determined that your goal is to make 2 sales a month. How many calls you got to make? You can make 300, right? I mean, it's pretty simple at that point. And then you might be a new agent and we know that, about 6 appointments turns into a contract. Because some people don't buy, some people obviously they don't just go out and look at the first home.
Yeah.
It takes multiple visits, and so on average it's 6. And so if you're a brand new agent, I would say you might want to plan for more like 8 or 9 in the beginning. If you don't have a lot of sales skills, if you're just beginning, or like hey, you've sold a lot, you're probably going to plug right in at 6. Or you're really got a lot of skill. You've been selling homes for a while. You might be more like 4. But we can base some goals off of that. And so let's say as a new agent, 8 appointments per contract, and you might end up doing even better, which you might sell 2.5 or 3 homes on average a month. But if it's 2 contracts, 8, now we know you got to sell, or you got to schedule 16 appointments a month. And so now you got little KPIs that you're measuring, like, hey, have I gotten to my 16 appointments yet? Have I gotten to my 300 calls? And we benchmark it like, hey, here's our best agents. Here's our, our average agents. And when you fall outside of those averages, then we start to kind of figure out how we can coach you. If it's taken a new agent 500 calls to get a contract, then, or 500 calls to get an appointment or something like that, we probably know it's on the front end. Like maybe they're not very good with what they're saying on the phone, or come across a little nervous or not confident. And so we can coach them that way. By the way, AI can help do that too. It's pretty incredible. But we can help coach them that way. Or if, they're going on 15 appointments for every contract, like they're good on the phone, like they're establishing a rapport, but something's not clicking. Like they're not helping the client narrow it down. They're not kind of closing that sale for that client. And so at that point, we have to focus on those skills. And so that's why the numbers help us so much. And it helps us figure out where we need to coach agents, but then it also helps us kind of set those overall goals, because otherwise you're just selling homes every day and you're just like, well, I don't know, my goal's 2 a month and hopefully they'll fall out of the sky today.
Yeah. And I think it's once you have those numbers and it breaks down like how many calls do I need to make and what does this actually look like, then looking back at that ideal week, you can kind of position those things that you do on days that you are the most able to be successful on the calls. And we talked about in previous episodes about kind of how important it is the tone you have and just like all of the little things that maybe you don't think about when you're on the phone call. But we've done previous episodes on it, so be sure to check those out because I think it does a great job of kind of explaining how to go about, finding that lead and actually having the conversation with that client for the first time. You referenced a little bit about AI, kind of transitioning into some of making your commitments for 2026. Talk a little bit about some of the different areas with AI and just like even shadowing top agents.
Yeah. So, that goal worksheet is kind of 3 components. Number 1 is like big picture. How much do you want to make? And then how many sales are you going to have to make to get there? Number two is from there, setting those goals, finding those metrics. And then number three, you can have all the goals in the world, but if you don't have any action, any commitments behind that, you're not going to achieve it. And so we encourage our agents to come up with, 3 commitments or, 3 or 4 commitments for the year. And so for a new agent, that might be, like AI role playing. It's one of my favorite days. It's game day. My daughter Macy plays basketball. My son plays basketball in college. Love game day. But, there's a lot of work that leads up to game day. There's a lot of practice. Practice as a team, practice as an individual, weightlifting, all those different things, conditioning. They don't just show up and play. But sometimes, like, what's more important, a basketball game or making a commission to help a client and earn money for your family? It's that. But do we put in the same work? Oftentimes we don't. We just show up for games. Like, oh, here's a client. I'm just going to show up. And so, we do coaching and role playing, all those different things. But one of the best new tools that I've seen come out is where the call can be recorded and AI can actually grade it. But on top of that, rates at 1 to 5, and then you can get in there like, oh, it was a 3-star. Well, are you okay with a 3-star performance? Because, you might make fewer calls and have more results if you start making 5-star calls. And so the AI will kind of tell you like, hey, here's the things that you can improve on. Here's what you did good. Here's what you need to improve on. And then you can go back and you can replay that call and try to get a higher score and role play with it. So we do that. That's been really helpful for new agents. And then also anytime somebody gets on a new lead type, because every lead, they come in differently. And so the scripting and everything that you say has got to be a little bit different. But we do like, the first step is, hey, let's go on there and role play. Like what was a 3-star call? You got to take it to 5-star call. And then once you do that, we'll do some live role playing with you and then get you on, because we don't want to just put you in the game. That's not setting you up for success. We want to make sure we get you prepared so that you get that big shot in the game. You hit the 3.
Yeah, and I think it's a great analogy, and I think I've never even thought about it from my perspective too, of going in and showing up to a meeting without even preparing for the meeting or preparing for what you actually do and being able to talk. Like you said, like half the work and half the battle for athletes and half the battle for real estate agents is to prepare. And if you come into the game, to the match, and you just think that, okay, because I am a real estate agent, I'll be fine in this scenario. It's like, well, maybe you should practice a little bit, because all the analogies of I think there's so much you can learn from just the things that don't work out well. And I think you don't get that unless you practice and unless you prepare for the things. So when they do go well, you're like, oh, this is what a good 5-star conversation is.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we do interviews all the time, and sometimes, an agent might be in the business. Hey, I've been in the business 10 years. Well, sometimes that's great. Like, you got great experience, past clients. But what do those 10 years look like? Sometimes you've been doing the same bad habits for 10 years and they're really ingrained. Sometimes I'd rather have a brand new agent that has no bad habits and is teachable. The ideal scenario is somebody that has, good habits and they're teachable. But that's the thing, is you don't want to just continue doing the same bad habits. You want to go back. That's the other thing. It's game day, but what will happen tonight, tomorrow? Macy's going to watch that film. They record the film. Hey, here's what I did good. Here's some celebration. Here's some wins. Here's what I need to work on next time I practice. And so that's what agents need to do as well. They need to look at, the AI as far as our calls, but then also think back. All right, when I said this, the client kind of got confused, or I did this and that made them feel uncomfortable. Like, rehearse that so that you learn from every meeting that you have.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk a little bit about kind of the 2026 blueprint and kind of the way you look at it for your real estate agents. It's incredible just to kind of see what the things you put in place. And I think it's really helpful for any agent listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, because there'll be future episodes talking about all sorts of different stuff. And all the information will be in the episode notes. But thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, perfect.
That's a wrap for this episode of Real Estate Matters, helping you double your sales and build a thriving business. But real success is about impact. That's why Matt's team has built over 140 homes for families in Central America, changing lives beyond real estate. Loved what you heard? Subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a fellow agent. For more expert insights, visit mattcurtisrealestate.com or find us on social media at Matt Curtis Real Estate. See you next time on Real Estate Matters.